Welcome to the Real People, Real Business Show, where we're talking with business owners who are in the trenches, everyday people who are working hard and have relevant and inspiring stories that you can relate to. Everyone we speak to is actively building and growing their business and is here to share their experiences, lessons, wisdom, and guidance so you can be inspired to take action towards your own goals. Today, I am so excited to welcome Danielle Robson. Danielle provides athletic performance training as well as kinesiologist services. She has a degree in both psychology and kinesiology, which is such a cool combination. And she strongly believes that consistent movement is directly related to a healthy life for the body and mind. So, welcome to the show, Danielle, and thanks so much for taking the time to share your story today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to your work is right up my alley right now. If anything, COVID has caused us all to start moving a little bit more and get some consistency in our activities. So it is going to be a good conversation today. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I spent while I was going to university, I was a ski coach with a range of ages. And when I finished my kinesiology degree, I worked as a kinesiologist and I continued to work as a ski coach. And the ski coaching career kind of started to progress a little bit more than my kinesiology at the time. And I worked for about a decade doing sports programming for a number of ski teams from club level all the way up to national team level. So I worked with the Canadian ski team. And in the summers, I would do all the programming. And in the winters, I would also coach and do the programming while we were on the hill. So that was kind of how I used my degree. It didn't really feel like exactly the route I thought I would go. I feel like that's a common story. But fast forward 10 years and now I have started to grow my business just in terms of athletic performance, using my kinesiology degree and also doing a lot of rehab work with different people. So yeah, that's kind of just slowly fell into it, I guess. Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about who you work with.
I work with a pretty big range, but I would say my main client base is athletic performance, just because that's a lot of my background. And then from working in a clinic setting quite a few years ago, I'm an ICBC vendor, so I can work with all people who've been injured by car accidents. So that's another has unfortunately been a pretty big piece in the last few months. So that's cool. And then I also work rehabbing injuries as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of rehab, depending on the context, but there's a lot of, and we live in a town that is very, very focused on being active and athletics. And so tell me a little bit about how that's kind of changed the demographic of who you've served and how.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, we do live in a really active town and even the whole Sea to Sky corridor. So I have pretty healthy people in general that I deal with, and not just young teens who I work with, but also I work with like 77-year-olds as well. So, and they're all quite active. It's always really shocking to see like their mobility at 70 years old. I guess the demographic is healthy, people who move, and even more so now with COVID, I think people are trying to move more, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, we have a little bit of time free to start figuring out how we can work that into our schedules. Do you think that this whole pandemic has been good for people in their activity?
I think so. I think it's funny. I was talking to one client yesterday and he said, if you're not doing it now, then it's going to be really hard when we go back to a bit more of a normal, because there are a lot of people that have time. And even if you're just at home, there's so many options now for people to just move, even if it's indoors and following some program or just trying to get outside instead of doing your commute. So yeah, I think COVID, that's been a real nice positive of COVID. If you're mentally feeling good about and committed to doing exercise. Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the things about that is tricky about where we live is that if you're most people work either north of here or south of here. And so they're always stuck in a commute. I remember when I commuted down to the city every day, it would be, I'd be gone at 6 a.m. and home at 6 p.m. And when are you going to work in activity then? So I think the work from home has probably had an even greater impact on the people who live here than perhaps in some other areas where they're not so beholden to a long commute.
Yeah, absolutely. I get stuck in that commute sometimes too, but yeah, just making the time for sure. And it doesn't have to be a long period of time. It can be, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Little incremental gains. So what's a bit different about the way that you work with your clients
In comparison to other businesses?
Yeah.
Well, I think because I kind of combine my experience working at a high level of performance. I've worked with the Canadian Sport Institute. And then I also have my education background where I've worked in a clinic setting and I have that kinesiology background. So I don't just start with a client and just kind of get after it and push hard and work through, hit workouts. I make sure that we go through a good assessment and we look for the strengths and weaknesses. And then we set goals and we kind of target. We can push as hard as a Canadian team athlete once we work through those weaknesses and make sure that the foundation is strong. So I think a big thing for me is just I combine those two worlds of a bit of science, high performance, and then I have that rehab background so I can pick out little things that aren't quite working properly on people.
Yeah, and that's a really important part of high performance, right? Is, a lot of people I think don't go as far as they need to in rehab, and the people that you're dealing with are, it's absolutely critical that they do, right?
Yeah, totally. And I work with lots of other practitioners, and there's lots of physios that say, the standard ACL and sea to sky, do your knee, and people go in for their physio appointments and they stay consistent with that. And then they've got maybe the next 6 months where the chance of re-injury is so high, but they think they've done it. And then they get back to their activities and then they re-injure. Like there's so many people that re-injure the ACL. And so those are the rehab stories where like, they can just get in for a month of just consistent physical exercise, then they're just going to be so much better off.
Now you're working independently, right? Or are you part of a clinic?
I am working independently, and I work out of a few different spaces in Squamish and Whistler, and then also in my home gym as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your business called?
Fall Line Fitness.
Fall Line Fitness. That's right. I knew it was F in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And so how do you break into a market like this that, is somewhat saturated, and, there are a lot of people who aren't really sure what they need, right? Do you start in a clinic, or how did you start?
I really just started once I started Fall Line. I mean, I worked in a clinic before, but once I started Fall Line, I really just started in a gym setting. So I worked in a gym setting with the ski club, and I've worked in a gym setting in Whistler called Peak Studio, where we kind of have a number of kinesiologists that all work together. So there's the ability to bounce ideas off of each other there. I guess it was mainly gym setting and breaking into the environment. I guess you're right. There's a lot of fitness trainers out there. I'm lucky because I'm a kinesiologist, and there's only a few kinesiologists in the Sea to Sky. So that makes a big difference for people that understand what a kinesiologist is. That's right. That is the big talking piece for sure. Also just trying to connect with physios and other chiros practitioners that we can create a multi-dynamic rehab program or fitness program. Yeah.
So who needs a kinesiologist as opposed to, a trainer, for example?
Well, a kinesiologist basically is someone who's gone to school and focused on the area of, exercise science and movement for 4 years, versus a personal trainer. It's typically more of like a month course or a couple month course that they would do. So it's just we just have a little bit more background in exactly where the muscles insert and which muscles are used for specific exercises. I think kinesiologist is just that final piece for a lot of people that maybe are struggling with some sort of nagging injury or pain or and a personal trainer is an awesome option as well. But maybe a personal trainer is more for people that feel good overall and they're ready to just start doing burpees and overhead presses and
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally get it.
Yeah.
And so that's why your focus more on rehab and more on professional athletes. Is that what they're looking for? They're looking more for a kinesiologist.
Yeah, pretty much. Or just, someone with experience in that realm. I think the word kinesiologist kind of freaks people out. Maybe it just sounds almost too scientific for people. They're like, I don't really want to go into some sort of lab and have my body assessed. I just want to get a good workout in. But it's just, all it is just that we're covered insurance wise and we're covered under benefits and we just have a different background of knowledge.
Yeah. Okay. And so how are you finding clients?
Well, I think I mentioned this one before. A big area is definitely connections. So working hard on building connections with other practitioners in town and in the Sea to Sky. I was an athlete and I grew up here. So I'm lucky to know some people within that area just from my own injuries and also from skiing at a provincial level. So that's definitely a big one, the connections. I think a lot of just my experience being here for the last 10 years from Vancouver to Whistler, that definitely helps. But this is an area that I'm always searching for improvement on because that's how we drive business. That's how we keep the money coming in. So
yeah. And are you finding it's relationships or is it referrals or who are you connecting with that's referring you?
I would say there's a decent amount of referrals and then connections from years of being in the corridor. And the nice thing that I have, I've got a fair amount of clients that I've had for, like even as I coached, but I've had clients, a lot of my clients have stuck with me for 3+ years. So that's also awesome because I've seen them grow over 3 years.
How's your industry changed since you started?
That's a really good question. Well, with COVID, it's just skyrocketed the online side of things for a lot of people because, to be safe, people are not all wanting to meet in person. So there is a huge demand for online programming. You've probably heard of the Peloton and some of those other.
I'm an addict.
Yeah, you got one too?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So these are all like competitors realistically for a kinesiologist or a personal trainer, but they can also be an added bonus as well. I've got lots of clients that I recommend they have that. So they get their cardio in and then they come back and see me, maybe once a week and get their strength and focused work with someone looking at them. I would say that's how the market's really changed. People have access to so much more and the market is pretty flooded. So sometimes that can be a little overwhelming, especially in the social media sense, just with how much information is put out there about fitness. And for someone just looking for a personal trainer, if you just start scrolling through Instagram, there's so many options. So you're definitely right. You need to find the niche and build connections because it's a tough world in that sort of big scheme social media, when I'm just a face and I don't have that relationship and time with a person.
Oh, totally. And I think that people have a hard time differentiating one trainer, quote unquote, from the other because there's a whole bunch of education, I guess, you need to do as well to help your people find you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so what is that? Like, how are you addressing that with the way that you're showing up in your marketing?
I think my marketing is probably my weakest link. So I am working towards getting that information out more on social media channels. I think my biggest marketing is testimonials and people talking about how it is to work with me for an hour. Yeah.
How do people hire a trainer? Is it based on your experience? Is it based on recommendations? Is it just based on how you make them feel or your focus?
I think a lot of people hire trainers just based on how well they look online, to be honest. And then maybe that sticks and they have a relationship with that person, or maybe it doesn't. But I think people would hire a trainer I find that a really tough question because I think you hire a trainer just because you find them either through someone or online, but the bigger picture is, do those people stick with you? Do they? So trying to get all those people just to try something with you that's the hardest part. And then it's whether they stick with you. And I think that's the key for sure, is just getting them in for that 30 minutes.
And so that becomes sort of your trick, right? Is how do you show up so that people want to take that first 30 minutes with you, and how are you building trust with them or some type of relationship with them before they even come in?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a lot of that trust is just built by, obviously, for any business, doing the research on the person, seeing what their experience is, and hopefully they like what they see. But that's a big key. I feel like you've touched on that a lot with your work. So it's just, trying to reach out to these people and find the best way that they can connect with you before physically connecting with you.
Yeah. And so you said something interesting earlier, that people will try out a trainer based on how they look online. So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, are we actually talking about, are you pretty? Are you, do you have a hard body? Like, what are they looking for, and what makes them interested in working with you?
I think for sure one whole thing is just how professional does your social media look to someone when they pop on and check you out. For sure, a big thing is people want to see that you as a trainer are fit. They want to see that I can get results because she looks like she knows how to get results. Did you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the one struggle I often have in the fitness world, is that there's definitely a level of superficialness, unfortunately, but it makes sense because you want to train with someone who knows how to get stronger and look fit.
Yeah. And, that brings up a whole conversation about the fitness industry and what people are drawn to and how we're marketing and what we're perpetuating in our marketing, right? And yes. And I know, like, I interviewed another friend of mine who's a trainer down in LA, and we had a good conversation about her finding her niche, and that once she discovered that she really wanted to work with people who were, women over 40, and then her marketing really changed, and it became much more focused on her knowing them as opposed to how she looks in her marketing. What are you finding resonates with people in this particular market? And my second question there is your market purely local, or are you starting to reach out to an online audience?
I would say I'm still pretty local. So that's another aspect. I have some online programming that I do with people across the country, but in general, I'd say 80% of them are local.
So given that you have a local market and a local audience, does that change how you're showing up for them? And what are your thoughts on having to show up as this, super fit? Like, are you playing into that, or are you deciding that your brand is going to be something else?
My brand is definitely going to be something else. Yeah. Again, back to the sort of active lifestyle that we live and the athletic performance, my marketing definitely drives a little bit more into being fit to have a healthy lifestyle, being fit to be a high performance athlete, being fit to not have nagging aches and pains for the rest of your life. That's more where my market is driven from. So I don't think that I'm targeting that market, that bigger fitness market, in terms of looking for, like, where's my six pack, where's your shots with the sports bras, that sort of side of the fitness industry.
So then what is that? What is that your audience wants to see instead?
They for sure want to see kind of more of the outdoor lifestyle, like being able to go for an awesome hike and get up on the mountain and feel fit when they're going out for a tour, or, you know, biking up a hill and feeling stronger than they ever have. That's the athlete side. And then in terms of rehab, just seeing that, oh, okay, she connects with physios and chiros and massage therapists, and there's this integrated sort of system that, for instance, this a few of my older clients, they know that I talk to the physio they work with, and that really brings a lot of confidence in what's going on in the gym and with the physio. And so that's the integrated approach that I offer. And that's the side of the media of my social media that I'm trying to make people aware of, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, that is very much what this audience is looking for. But do you think that they're still somewhat influenced by, you know, how you appear in your marketing, or are they looking for education?
I'd have to say I think it's half and half. I do still think it's half and half.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, people are drawn, that's just society. People are drawn to, you know, good looking, fit people that are healthy and fit. So you're going to have that target market. I do think that falls a little bit more in the younger crowd, but I could be wrong. I know when I work with some of the older clients, they want to know why they're doing this exercise, or a little bit more of the why. So that's an awesome question, because I would say that knowledge piece is huge, and that connects into the whole kinesiology side of things. And people that are showing up, a lot of the clients, they want to know, why am I moving my arm in this Y position? You know, what is it actually doing?
So if they're ultimately looking for the why, then that would say to me that perhaps your marketing is going to be focused more on educating and on the science behind the work that you do, as opposed to, hey, look at me in my six pack and hard body.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah. So what do you think somebody breaking into the fitness industry, like what's the best thing they can do for themselves to help themselves kind of grow or get established quickly?
Build connections.
Yeah.
Reach out. Don't be, be confident, and don't be afraid to reach out. The worst that can happen really is people don't respond, or, like there's not much bad that can come in from reaching out. So I do think connecting and telling people a little bit about your story makes a big difference.
Right. And so you're in a profession where people really want to know you, right? And they want to have a relationship with you. And that relationship is what's going to create kind of the longevity. And I think that people breaking in, their best strategy is potentially to create those relationships with other people in the industry. And then, are you out at events, or are you out at competitions? Like there's lots of that stuff going on here, or there was. Is that another area where you can break in?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with COVID, everything's kind of changed over the last year, but I think just thinking about the future and where to go there. But I have worked as a soccer coach in town. So that's one area I've done some work in. And then there's so many bike, like the Sorka Association here is so huge. So breaking in there a little bit more, I think would make a big difference in the athletes side of things. This is just a biking mecca. So I guess I haven't done a ton, but there is a couple, the two organizations that I have connected with so far. And as we get back to actually socializing and seeing people in person, I think that's a real good target market.
What do you think has been sort of pivotal for you in your business? Like, when was there a time where you kind of went, oh, things are going to change now?
I think when I made up in my mind that my full-time ski coaching with training, when I shifted away from that, it was scary, because that's just something I've been used to doing for 10 years. And once I shifted, then my mind was more focused on the task that, working as a kinesiologist and a trainer, that is my task now, rather than kind of a mix of both. And that shift and reaching out to people was basically, okay, this makes way more sense. And I also had my best year because I'm more clear on what my focus is.
That clarity of focus was a really big deal for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say kind of helped the most in getting that clarity?
The clarity came from just continuing to build relationships with a couple of my clients and building that confidence within myself that I can grow this business. Whereas before it was more of a sort of a side hustle. I can have a few clients here and that's awesome. But clarity came from the clients almost providing me with some confidence that I can retain people. I can make them feel better in their body and mind. And I really resonate with this job. Like I love this job. I like being in the gym with people. And I think that's where the clarity came from, I guess.
It's just being more aware and listening to what feels really good for you. And what have you discovered does not feel good for you?
I think within the business, what does not feel good is when I overanalyze and I don't create little breaks within or times within my day that I shouldn't be business focused. Like I have that tendency to just work, and that's not a healthy relationship with your work. Even though I love my work, that's not going to last for years if I just, work as much as I can.
So that's a really good observation. And I know that most people who are listening to this fall in that category, right? Where they have this mindset that you need to be constantly working, and like we're not in that kind of society anymore. We're not in that kind of industry anymore where, this isn't like the Industrial Revolution where the more hours you put in, somehow you're making your business better, right? You're actually better off giving yourself some room to breathe throughout the day. So how do you do that? How do you build that into your work schedule?
So I mentioned that because I think I've been actually not great at that in the last few weeks. But yoga is a big one for me. It calms me right down. I don't think about anything. And I make that effort a couple days a week in the evenings. And for me, skiing, I am in the present moment. If I get a ski day in once a week, that makes a huge difference for me. But in terms of the full day of just working, I think being able to shut my brain off of like, how am I going to market this next post, or how am I going to reach out and what's happening tomorrow? For me, I have to find ways to kind of calm my brain. So that's, going for a dog walk, yoga. It seems to be activity for me. Sounds like
these little brain breaks, right? Like where you don't even have to do anything specific, but just shifting from what you were doing into, something else for just a few minutes, I think can like almost create that little reset, right?
Totally. Yeah. Otherwise you could go through a day thinking about some way you're going to market and you don't even get anywhere, but you've been working for, a bunch of hours. So,
well, I imagine it's better for your customers too, when they get that kind of attention from you.
Totally.
Yeah. How do you work with your clients right now? Is it mostly one-on-one? Do you have like long-term relationships with your clients?
Yeah. So since COVID, it's changed slightly, but I've always been mainly one-on-one. So it hasn't affected me too much. I work either one-on-one, some partners, I've got like a mom and daughter duo that I've been with for over 4 years. So that's like that's a really fun way to train if you have a partner or a friend. And one-on-one seems to be a nice, safe space for people right now. And I work out of, it's just 2 of us in the whole space. So people feel comfortable. So that would be my niche in terms of, since COVID, the one-on-one is huge. And then I also have an online program. So I have a fair number of people since, I guess, March. It's already been almost a year since March when COVID kind of hit. I kind of pushed out a pretty reasonably priced monthly online programming. and got a bunch of people on that, and they've continued on, and they're now almost through a year of working out, doing some strength and mobility on this app every month. So that's been a change for my company, because I did a little bit of online work before COVID, when I would maybe go away for a month and work with the national team, and I wanted to keep my clients happy and have at least something that they could do for a couple of weeks while I was away. But now, since COVID's hit, there's definitely a lot of people that are looking for that option. Doesn't work for everyone. I have a few people that are just like, no, I can't make it on my own. I need to see you once a week at least, and then then I know the check-in's coming, so I'll do my other day of strength. But those are the two options. It's like in person, hands-on. That's one type, or else the online, where people are happy and super committed to doing the work on their own and just kind of checking in online.
And what about you? I mean, do you enjoy delivering services that way?
I do. Yeah. I think, again, for me, it seems like my biggest struggles are, putting the time together to do the videos for online, make it more personal, because I think the personal touch within training is probably one of my best attributes. And so I'm always afraid that if I'm just shooting out an online program, I want to make it still feel like they're getting a solid program. So that's been a small challenge, I would say. It's harder to get excited about going online and programming for the week for all these people. But then you get the check-ins and I get the comments, oh, great workout. So it's still a great piece of program and of my business, but it's definitely harder for me than in person.
Yeah, but it sounds like that's something that the key thing that you need, regardless of how you're working with your clients, is that feedback, right? That check back in, know it's working. And so how do you know that what you're doing is working for your clients?
So I try and check in basically monthly with them. Some of them like to just do like a quick FaceTime or a Zoom and let me know how things are going. I also just make little comments. I use an app that we can communicate back and forth. So there's a little bit of chat going on with some people. Some people like to leave funny videos. So that's also helpful. But the monthly sort of on my side of things, I make a note to make sure that at least monthly they're getting a check-in. And for some people online, even I have them online. And if they're local, they come in once every 4 to 8 weeks. And then they let me know a little bit more about what's going on, which is awesome. And then we create the next 4 to 8 weeks. So that's another kind of a combo that works as well.
How have you designed your programs, though, to make sure that they serve both you and your clients? Because this is one of the things we talk about, right? Is that it's not okay to just have a business that serves your clients. This business also has to do something for you. So what is it that your business needs to do for you?
For fitness, it's such a great business, because when people start to feel better, then obviously that relays back into me and it serves me, because the program is working. They're sticking to the process and the goals. And then that information is relayed back to me, either in person or not. But that's what I'm here for. Like, I want to make people feel better in their bodies, whatever it is, if it is more superficial or if it's just because of their nagging injury or whatever it is, and they start to feel a change and they start to build a better knowledge of why they're doing these 4 weeks programmed a certain way, then that to me is awesome, because I've got, like I said, a number of ICBC clients, and a lot of them have never done a lot of training in the gym, and they're like, okay, everything you're saying to me is starting to make sense, and now I'm thinking about how I'm sitting with my shoulders throughout the day, and now all of a sudden this pain's going away. So that sort of stuff that's giving back to me.
Right. Yeah. So again, it comes back to the feedback, and it comes back to being able to work in a way that honors what you know is super important, which is the science side of the work that you're doing, and not just kind of here's 5 reps of some strength exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
How much do you guide your programming as opposed to your clients guiding their programming?
That's a good question. I do guide a lot of it. Some days I'm a little bit evil, I guess people would say. Like, I listen to the feedback, and certain things people don't like, and that's totally fine. And I will shift those. I will shift those exercises. There's so many exercises out there that we don't need to get stuck on things that people hate doing. But I also place importance on, agility and interval training and strength. There, all the aspects. So typically someone doesn't love one of those aspects, but that doesn't mean that I will allow them to not do it.
So you're really juggling that personalization with some structure and some guidance.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And not really dissimilar to working as a business coach either, right? I need to do the same thing. And you're kind of always, using the carrot and the stick. And we've got some parts of the work that we do that is all about customization, and some parts of it that's a little bit of command, right? And I think that works in any type of coaching scenario.
Yeah, totally.
Where do you see innovation happening in your business, and what's getting you excited?
Well, lately I've been thinking about related to the online programming. So obviously online programming is that there's innovation there for sure in the ways that you kind of implement that and push that out. But most people use some form of, or maybe they don't, and it would be helpful, some sort of step up, or a lot of people maybe use a bench or a product that helps with step ups and lunges and split squats. And my thinking is that if I could build a good enough marketing campaign, I could create the box. Basically, it's like fitness in a box. And for me, that's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is how can I create something that has enough equipment in it that's at a reasonable price. And then within that fitness in a box, you get your fitness online for the month with that fitness in a box. So it's kind of just like an all-encompassing package. So that's one level of innovation that I've been like thinking about. And just like we talked about, the Peloton, it's like bike in a small square footage, and there's your, this is what people want, especially with being at home so much right now. So
they want that real turnkey kind of solution, but they want it from somebody who knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's interesting. You're getting into almost the productization of your services. And
Yeah.
what would it take to make that happen?
We've started kind of looking at, we've built a couple boxes just for my own gym, just to see what they're like and make sure it's the right size and stuff. But I think the toughest thing that probably everybody would resonate with is all these ideas, and which ideas do you actually put into practice and push through and do. So I think the hardest part would just be, making the effort to do it.
So what's your answer to that? How do you decide where to invest your time and where not to?
I invest a lot of my time, obviously in person, like we've talked about, but I invest a lot of my time in building programs. Basically, I invest a lot of time on the background of it that people don't see. So, reading lots about the latest stuff and using the science and creating programs that I believe people will enjoy when they decide to go for, a month program or something like that.
So you invest a lot of your time in your own development. Given that you have a few, if you had a few options for innovation, for development of new products or new services, how are you deciding what gets your attention?
You've kind of stumped me a little bit on that one.
Well, if you think about it, like in your body, when you're given two options of new ideas, because we're always coming up with new ideas, which of those, which one are you going to, like, how are you deciding where that time is going to go? Do you feel a certain way, or do you try to trust your instincts, or do you use logic?
I typically go more logic, but I think more recently I'm trusting my instincts a bit more. And I don't know if that comes from a certain point in your business when you feel like you can kind of try something new rather than trying to just go through the step process a bit more when you're just getting started. maybe that's a personality thing as well. But yeah, I think trusting my instincts, because I feel confident in what I'm offering, and I've seen results from people over multiple years now. So I think there's that level of, what resonates just like right here, like what
Right.
I believe is gonna work.
Right. And so, as you've gotten more mature in your business and as you've got more experience, then your intuition becomes much clearer, right? And you know that that thing that shows up in your gut or in your heart is true because you've been able to, prove that over the years, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you tell somebody, what would you wish you knew when you first got started that you'd love for someone else to know if they're just starting out?
I think it's okay to, figure out where your strengths are, but it's okay to ask for a little bit of help or get some support in certain areas of your business. I think often we try to, because we're starting out fresh, we want to try and do it all ourselves, but I don't think that's the best way to operate a business, even if it's small. So that's something I still struggle with sometimes. It's like, which areas need support. But I think that's key. It's trying to really sit down and figure out what are your strengths, and then maybe I can get a little bit of support in certain areas that will offer support for my business.
Where do you wish that you had asked for help earlier on?
Marketing for sure for me. Yeah, I think so. And at some level of, I'm not a crazy tech guru, so you trying to get a little bit of support in terms of like website building, and I did all of that stuff on my own, so probably not the smartest.
But
But
we
I
all do, right?
learned from that. Yeah.
Yeah, we all try at the beginning and then we learn and we don't have to have everything perfect from the get-go. So I think it's totally fine, right?
Yeah.
To start somewhere, and then as you grow and you learn more about your business, then it's time to maybe do phase 2. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So what's next for you? I mean, where are you going?
Well, you talked about where my clients coming from. I think you have to look bigger picture. I think just focusing solely on, I think the big area obviously is where you live, especially in my business, but there's no reason why I can't connect further out, even, just across the country, or there shouldn't be anything that should hold me back from, reaching a little bit further into the world, and believing that that's possible.
So you're kind of eyeing up how you might expand your reach beyond just the local market.
Yeah, totally. And also for me, expanding into maybe, I've worked with quite a few sports, but expanding into some higher level performance with different sports as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, there's certainly no shortage of opportunity here to get experience with different sports.
Yeah.
You're in a playground for sure. Awesome. And what kind of support do you need? How can the group help you? I mean, what do you need in order to support you in your next endeavors?
Well, I think for the group, I think probably resonates with a lot of people is just, building a nice community and building connections and learning what each person does. And the more you know about that sort of stuff, maybe somebody has an injured area that they're like, oh, maybe I should try out Fall Fitness. I think a community is huge. I'm always trying to, even within the little neighborhood I live in, it's like community is so huge. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And we've got a great group of people in our free group, and there's, lots of communities out there. So, if you're looking for help with, your rehab or that next level of fitness, and you're science driven, and you like that Danielle has this kinesiology background, reach out to her. All of her information is going to be in the show notes. And then within the group, you're welcome to make a direct connection. And I agree with you, Danielle. I think community is a massive part of growing your business and becoming more confident in your business. So, I think immerse yourself in as many communities as you can.
yeah, totally.
especially with a local business. Okay. Well, we're running out of time, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Can you tell your listeners what the best way is to find you?
The best way to find me is through my website. It's falllinefitness.ca, and it's a bit tricky, fall line. So there's 3 L's in there and you can just look at the contact page there. But yeah, I'm always happy to chat on the phone too.
Maybe tell people what a fall line is.
So fall line relates a little bit more to the sporting side. Fall line is if you're working on a bike or on skis and you're skiing down the hill, staying in the fall line is staying, in the best angle down the hill so you can create the most speed. So if you think about carving across the hill, you're definitely not in the fall line, but if you're carving down and feeling that speed down the hill, that's the fall line. That's getting into the fall line.
Awesome. Well, it's a perfect name for your business.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. Such a great conversation. Make sure to go and check out Danielle and her offers at falllinefitness.ca. We'll put all of the links in the show notes. And thank you again for tuning in to hear Danielle's story. The episodes you're listening to are all featuring members of my free private Facebook group called the Real Deal Business Coaching Group, where we have daily prompts to keep you focused on building your business and sharing your everyday challenges, bi-weekly virtual chats, open coaching, monthly challenges, all sorts of stuff going on. And most importantly, member support from this incredible community. If you'd like to join our community, if you'd like to be featured on this show, I'd love for you to come and hang out with us in the group. Link is in the show notes, or search up Real Deal Business Coaching in Facebook to find us. And finally, I would love for you to join us on our next episode, where I am going to be speaking to my friend Hayasha Sadaf, who is a motherhood coach that works with smart, loving mothers and is sharing her story about what services she provides to these wonderful mothers, her journey, which I am intimately familiar with, and some of the amazing mindset shifts that she has made on her journey. So thank you again for being here. And if you have enjoyed today's content, I would love for you to give us a review on whatever platform you're on. This helps us share these stories with an even bigger audience. And until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep being real.